up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined as always by Mr. William Monroe. How you doing, man?
Dude, doing good over here, buddy. Actually gonna test out one of the local movie theaters for the first time since quarantine started, as I hear that all the Regals, or most of the Regals in the US are closing, so we wanted to check out the IMAX possibly one last time.
Oh, wow. Closing, like, temporarily or permanently?
It said Regal is closing operations on almost all of their North America or United States theaters. I think it's a parent company owned by some company in the UK. So, I mean, still have some AMCs, but all of the IMAX theaters in our area are Regal. So, we wanted to see Tenet. So, we're going to test it out. They say they're pretty safe, COVID safe. So, we'll have to report back.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I wonder, do you know what the capacity is?
It seemed like every other row is closed. And then I think they're like, if you book seats, it'll like take 2 seats to your left and right and automatically book them as well. Okay. So I think they're trying to do that because it's all assigned seating.
Yeah, fair enough.
So hopefully that's good. But this will be my first time checking it out, so it'll be something different.
Yeah, I'd say. What was the last time you were in a theater?
Before March.
Yeah, right? It's been
a
long time. It's kind of weird to think about.
Yeah, and they're probably not doing so hot since then. So they're already on the rocks, giving everyone streaming and just watching movies online. Now, I'm sure they're really on the rocks. So we will see what happens from there. But what's going on in the life of Steve and life north of the wall?
Nothing. I wake up, I go to work, I finish work, I weed outside, and then dinner, I weed some more, and then I go to bed.
a lot of weeding on the new house?
Yeah, we were trying to get done the whole yard and get some grass seed down before it got too cold, but I think we're giving up on that project and just stopping where we are and just throwing the seed down. It's just...
you have this beautiful part of your lawn and then this still unweeded part.
Yeah, it's just like if it weren't working, it wouldn't be that big of a deal, but with work, it only opens up like an hour or two a day, and then like every weekend we have something going on. So like we had my mother-in-law over one weekend to show the house, his father-in-law the next weekend. We had a baptism to go to last weekend. This weekend's gonna be Thanksgiving, so it's not like we've even had like a full weekend to do any work either. So it's all combined together to me just saying, if we try to get this whole thing done, it's gonna be too cold and nothing's gonna actually get roots down. So it's time to just give up where we're at, and the yard's a long-term project. So it is what it is. But yeah, we got Thanksgiving coming up this weekend. American viewers, the Canadian Thanksgiving is in October. So I'll be cooking a turkey for the first time.
A Thursday still, or is it a...
It's a Monday. Next Monday.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's just a long weekend, and Monday is the holiday.
Yep, pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah.
A little different, same premise.
Are you going to celebrate U.S. Thanksgiving as well?
I usually go back to Jersey to just have Thanksgiving with my parents, but I don't think that's going to happen this year. So, but that's the usual.
Interesting. Well, possibly 2 Thanksgivings for Steve this year, so that everyone cross your fingers.
Yeah, would be nice. But enough turkey talk. You ready to jump into some start sits?
Yeah, we'll talk about who is the turkeys and who are just the sides here.
Yes, nice work. So
thank you.
Starting with a quarterback question.
Here all day.
I've seen this question actually thrown out a couple different places. Will, I think you said the footballers talked about him. Would you rather start Matt Ryan versus the Panthers or Justin Herbert at New Orleans?
I'm going to go with Matt Ryan. I get that he's not playing great, but I don't love the matchup in New Orleans for Herbert. I'm a little worried there. Herbert's played good, but he's, inevitably due to have a setback game or just a bad game. He's a rookie. So I don't expect this to be a great game for him, where if on paper, the Panthers can move the ball and they're not the best defense. So on paper, that Panthers-Falcons game could be pretty high scoring. Obviously, you got to see who's healthy for the Panthers, but it sounds like Julio is really the only big question still, I think. And he obviously is a big piece for that team, but you'd imagine you'd be able to survive with Ridley, Hurst, and Gage on the outside. So it's not too close for me. I'm going to go Ryan. What about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I can see, like, I understand Herbert. He's had some good games. He's got some upside to him, but yeah, I worry about Sean Payton and creating havoc for him. So I think I'm going to pass. I mean, it is partially dependent on who we're comparing him up against. Where, like you said, Ryan hasn't been the greatest, but against the Panthers, I'm pretty confident in him that he's at least going to be average. So I'm fine rolling out Ryan this week. If you have to do Herbert, that's fine. I don't hate it. I just a little bit more worrisome. Now, with that in mind, if Herbert comes out and plays really well against New Orleans, then he is in the conversation every week for, a starter outside of your elite defenses. So it's a big week for him in my eyes, but yeah, I'd be starting Ryan.
All right. Next up, we're going to go over to the running back position. We have, I believe that's James White versus the Broncos, Myles Gaskin against the Niners, and D'Ernest Johnson making his debut here on the Start Sit show versus the Colts.
Yeah, I'm not trusting him yet. He's, we've seen this kind of conservative attitude out of me a lot of the times with these players that kind of pop out of nowhere. I get the situation with Chubb out. They've been running 2 running backs, and he got some usage in the last game, but I'm going to need to see it again before I trust him with a start. I could very easily just seeing this being the Kareem Hunt show, and Johnson comes in here and there to spell him. Hunt has the profile to be a bell cow. So I'm going to wait another week. Plus, it's a good defense. It's not like they're up against the Panthers or something like that, or Dallas, and they're just giving up a lot of points. The Colts are good defense. So that kind of worries me too. So I'm going to remove him. White versus the Broncos and Gaskins at San Francisco. They're both very interesting options. I think I'm leaning with Gaskins getting a lot of pass catching against San Francisco. I think is going to be valuable, where you could say the same for White, but I just don't know how that Patriots-Broncos game is going to go. It looks like Cam's going to be out again. Stidham and Hoyer both look terrible, and that's not going to be good for White. So I think I'd just rather avoid that situation as a whole and go with Gaskins, but I really don't love any of them. Where do you fall?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to arrive at Gaskins as the option here. You imagine, it's going to be a game where the game script's going to be in their favor. He, has gotten targets in the past. I like Johnson. I picked him up a couple places. If you really need to start, and you don't have a guy like Gaskins, like I wouldn't mind playing Johnson over James White if it was just those two here. I like the Colts defense a lot, but I do think they don't want to overwork Kareem Hunt, and I think Johnson's going to get, between somewhere in, 7 to 12 touch and target combined area. So I do think he's an option, but I would go with Gaskin here because it seems like he's going to get the majority of the work. Even with Cam, with Cam, that's White's best chance, but it's also with Cam and going up against a bad or a better offense to try to keep up. Without Cam, I just don't know that I trust many options aside from, you probably have to start Edelman based on where you drafted him. But other than that, I don't really want anybody on that team until Cam's back. So pretty easily Gaskin for me here. And are we assuming that's standard PPR? Do we know?
I think it's PPR.
Gotcha. It gives White a little bit of a boost, but it's probably not too much. Going to go Gaskin.
Our next one, we got a flex question here. Well, a lot of people get some tough matchups. Cooper Kupp at Washington, Miles Sanders at Pittsburgh, Joe Mixon at Baltimore, or OBJ versus Colts.
Tough one. You're typically not going to sit Mixon or Sanders, but this might be a situation where it would be beneficial to do that for both. I think Pittsburgh's number 1 against the running back, Baltimore number 6, I believe, against the running back. So both of them, should be used in the passing game. We've seen Mixon, I think, this week get a little more involved, but they could revert back to splitting it a little more. And Sanders doesn't seem to have been utilized as much as we would have liked. So if you want to be safe, I'm probably going Cooper Kupp here. I think if you want upside, one of the running backs makes more sense, and I think I'd put my money on Sanders because I just feel like he's definitely used in the passing game. They haven't connected with him a ton in the first couple games here, but he has been used, and the team doesn't really have many other options but Sanders and Zach Ertz. So I would say probably Kupp in a vacuum. If you need a ton of upside, you're probably looking at Sanders for me.
Yeah, I'm going with Kupp relatively easily, just given how the Pittsburgh defense has been playing. They've been shutting down the run really well. Plus, they basically had a bye week, so that gives them an extra week to prepare against the Eagles. Mix against Baltimore is too tough of a matchup. OBJ, I can understand why he's tempting after the big game, but right now, OBJ is the kind of guy that you can kind of see the matchups coming, and this doesn't look like one to me. So keep an eye on it. If he has a really good game, then maybe we're getting the return of OBJ. But for now, it's Kupp pretty easily for me. After Kupp, I'm not even sure what I would do. I think I'd probably roll the dice on OBJ, but Sanders is close. But for me, it's Kupp far and away.
Right. Next up, PPR tight end here. Rob Gronkowski against the Bears or Gesicki against the Niners.
An interesting one with OJ Howard going down and Godwin being out. So I can understand the Gronk.
And Watson too. So
yeah,
there's targets.
It's there and it makes sense. The problem is it's a Thursday night game, right? That game?
Yep.
Tampa. So
yeah, that's Thursday night game.
Yeah, it's a Thursday night game. Godwin's been out already, and we haven't really, it's not like Gronk's been amazing. So Gronk he still falls into that grouping of if he gets a touchdown, it'll be good. If he doesn't, then you're not happy with anything. And maybe those touchdown odds go up a little bit. I'll stick with Gesicki. He's going to have a worrisome game too against San Fran, but I trust him more than I'm trusting Gronk right now.
Yeah, this one's pretty easy for me. I'm going Gesicki. I could see, Gronk getting some work here, but something tells me it's going to end up being Brate or somebody that you don't expect, gets in the end zone. I just think Gronk's washed. I know he's had a couple of plays here and there, but he just doesn't look the same on the field. And Gesicki, I think he's been nicknamed Mini Gronk at times. He, you could tell he's, maybe he's not getting all the targets, but he's making some crazy athletic plays, and that's just going to earn him more and more targets and usage in the offense. So not, the best matchup, but in all likelihood, they're probably going to be trailing most of the game. So Gesicki should be utilized a lot.
Okay, jumping back to the quarterback position, Jared Goff at Washington or Bridgewater at Atlanta.
Yeah, this one's closer than you typically expect. I mean, Bridgewater's been playing well. I know we talked about this earlier, but this last game, I think he had 3 touchdowns, over 275 yards. So he'd be getting a little bit of bonus on the ground as well, rushing. And this is a good matchup, so it's tough not to go him. And I think I'd lean Bridgewater here. Goff's, the better player. But the game script maybe lends to, unless he gets off to a quick start, they are running, by mid-game a little bit more often. So I think I lean Bridgewater here. I think they're pretty close, and I wouldn't mind playing either of them. But I think I go Bridgewater with the way he's playing here and just kind of a perfect matchup against Atlanta.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go that way too. I mean, he had the boom week last week, but he's been pretty consistent other than that, where Goff hasn't been consistent. He's had some really, really good games and some fine games, and they're kind of hard to predict. Last week seemed like a great week for him, and it just didn't work out. So he could be the play here, but I'm going to lean Bridgewater. If you want to go Goff, I have no issue with that. I get it. But like you said, Bridgewater's been good. The game script lends itself to potentially being a higher scoring game because of that Atlanta defense and the Panthers defense. So yeah, I'll stick with Bridgewater as well here.
All right. So next up, we're looking at Robert Woods against Washington or Terry McLaurin against the Rams PPR.
This is a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It must be nice. I will.
If you can only start one of them, you probably got two other receivers ahead.
Yeah, right. You must have worked out. Maybe you just went 0 RB, but it worked out. You did pretty good here. I will go with McLaurin. I don't think I could bench him for very many people right now. He's playing really well. Now, the quarterback change does have some sort of concern. Say what you want about Haskins, but him and McLaurin have been working together for a while. And I am assuming McLaurin hasn't worked a whole ton with Kyle Allen, and I'm sure they've done some reps together, but they're still going to there's still going to be a learning curve involved there, I would imagine. But I think McLaurin is talented enough to overcome that. Woods could be a great play, but kind of like Goff, he's just difficult to predict. He could end up with 2 touchdowns in this a game. He could end up with 50 yards, and that's it. He's steady, and he's like steady, like in the middle. He's not going to burn you too badly, but he might not give you the upside either. So I will stick with McLaurin. How about you?
It's tough with the quarterback change. I think it does hurt McLaurin a bit. I know I'm high on McLaurin here, but I'm a little worried about Kyle Allen. I think he's been more of a check down guy in the past, so I don't know that you get as many opportunities for the deep ball with McLaurin. But that being said, the game script's going to be in his favor, even if it's a little, shorter routes. In PPR, he should be getting quite a few catches. Probably benefits Antonio Gibson the most, but in this matchup, I like Woods, but once again, just like Goff, I think they have to score relatively early because I do imagine they're up pretty big. But as you mentioned, both great options, both probably in the wide receiver 2, maybe even wide receiver 1 range. So find a way to get both of them in your lineup if you can. But if you're only starting one, I'll take McLaurin.
Okay, next up, Will, we have a half-point PPR, Battle of the Rookies in really good matchups. We got CeeDee Lamb versus the Giants and Justin Jefferson at Seattle.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I love CeeDee Lamb. The offense is putting up a ton of points. But maybe the matchup in game script isn't there as much. We'll see. Something's got to give. Either the Cowboys defense or Daniel Jones. One of them's got to come up with a better game than they've been having. And there's just so many weapons around Lamb that I don't think I can get out of the Justin Jefferson flames. I think it's only been 2 weeks now, maybe not 3 weeks, so he's not on fire yet. But he's looked great, and this seems to be a great matchup with going against Russ and him likely putting up some points. So I like the matchup. Talent-wise, pretty close. Competition for targets is in Jefferson's favor. So there's more things pointing to Jefferson here. So I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I come to pretty much the same conclusion that they both could have monster games. They could both just be fine because other players end up with the touchdowns, but Jefferson has less competition. You're dealing with Thielen, you're dealing with Rudolph, you're dealing with Dalvin Cook, and that's about it. Where Lamb's got Cooper, you got Cedric Wilson, you got Michael Gallup, you got Schultz, you got Zeke, you have Dak that can run the ball in. So there's just a lot more competition for Lamb to deal with. And like you mentioned, there's the quality of opponent where you could score a lot of points against both of these, but Seattle's going to put up a lot of points against Minnesota. You can't say the same with confidence that the Giants are going to put up points on Dallas. You would think they are, given the Dallas defense, but Giants offense hasn't been anything either. So, maybe not. So that is pretty much what you said, I think. Same conclusion at the end of the day. I will go with Jefferson. Nothing against Lamb, just the opportunity seems better.
Next up here, we've got half-point PPR, Devonta Freeman at Dallas or Myles Gaskin at San Fran.
Oh, boy. I don't want to start Freeman. I will say if you need a solid floor, I'm going with Gaskin because he's going to catch plenty of passes. He's been a decent runner. He doesn't have the touchdown upside, which is why he's the floor play. So if you need a solid floor, I'll go with Gaskins. If you need high upside, Freeman has high upside because the Giants can score. maybe he's the one doing the scoring. So, there's some upside there, but I don't know what the floor is for Freeman. I don't want to start him. So in an absolute vacuum, I'll take Gaskins, but I'd rather play the floor versus upside game. How about you?
Yeah, it's tough. I'd go Gaskins overall. We talked about what he's going to look like in that game, and I think you're looking at likely a flex option. But Freeman, yeah, he has touchdown upside, right? That's really what you're banking on. And he's been kind of limited and slightly worked in. 5 touches the first week, 15 this week. I don't know that he gets more than 20, 25 in a game, depending on the game script here. They do have Dion Lewis. I believe he's healthy, Steve. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I believe so.
He profiles more as a pass-catching guy if they are in that negative game script trying to come back. But they do have a good stretch here. Dallas, Washington, Philly. 3 defenses that haven't been playing great this year. So Freeman could be in line for some games where they're in. This week, I think probably the least likely. Still working him back. Game 3. Probably best offense he's going to face. So could be an option you use in coming weeks, but this week I'm going to go with Myles Gaskin. Freeman's probably a little more of a desperation play for me. I may have to play him in a second flex in our own league, but I don't know that I'm going to be interested in playing him over a couple other guys. So he's an option, but I would rather play Gaskin if I had him.
Okay, fair enough. Next question. We got a flex PPR. A couple guys we've talked about. James White versus the Broncos. D'Ernest Johnson versus the Colts. Russell Gage versus the Panthers. Or T. Higgins at Baltimore.
Yeah, this one's fairly easy to me. It's going to be Gage. Obviously super easy. Locked him in if Julio doesn't play. But even if he does, Gage has been involved. And I like the just weapons in that offense overall. Not huge on White. Johnson, I don't hate the option, but I'd rather play Gage. Higgins is the interesting one. He's kind of got that touchdown upside that we talked about with Freeman, right? It's going to be a tough matchup against Baltimore. There are his weapons around there. But he has been shown to be used as a red zone weapon. So Higgins could get in the end zone, and that could, give him a blow-up day if he can get, 5 catches, 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So wouldn't be mad if you want to go with an upside play of Higgins, but overall, I'm going to go just with the usage and what we've seen out of Russell Gage.
Yeah, I'm going with Gage too, but I definitely give more of a pause for Higgins than I originally did because, like you, I look at him and say, got touchdown upside, but he's got a really tough matchup. But then I think how Baltimore is going to cover because they're going to have to deal with Boyd, but it's like AJ Green, are you still giving top coverage to AJ Green? Because if not, then T. Higgins is your third option. He's going to get a lot lighter coverage than anyone else, which might make him a really good play, even though it's a good defense. Or, are we not targeting AJ Green as much and just moving the coverage around, in which case it's going to be a tougher time for Higgins. So there's a lot of opportunity for him there, but I come to the same conclusion. I don't want to play him against that tough defense. Higgins aside, Burrow could have a tough game. It's a very good defense, and rookies have those games, so it might be a struggle for both of them potentially. I'll stick with Gage as well. If you need upside, like something happens Thursday and you get blown out, then Higgins would probably be the play. But outside of that, I'll stick with Gage.
All right. Next up, we have Gardner Minshew against the Texans or Big Ben against the Eagles.
This is a close one. This one is very interesting. We talked about Minshew on the waiver show of having a good matchup against the Texans. Do the Texans rally around the coach being gone, or I don't know. But Big Ben's also got a good matchup in a week of rest. So I think I am going to side with Big Ben here. He's been pretty good, and he's got the bye week that he can lean on, extra preparation. So I'll go with Big Ben. I have no issue if you want to go with Minshew, though. I don't know what his floor is. He worries me.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way, actually. I'm looking at Minshew. I like just kind of the matchup. Both teams, not great defenses. You're just kind of evenly matched. So I think there could be some points in that game. Where, coming off that weird bye week, not like a full bye week because they kind of practice a bit. They only got a few days off and then they come back. Like Ben was on a radio show today and he said he's really just getting back into really football to, feeling better about football today. So it seems like they may be a little out of whack. And as bad as the Eagles have, seemed to have played overall, they're number one in sacks in the league. So they could get to Ben. And Darius Slay has been one of the best cover corners in the league. I think he's averaging about 30 to 35 yards against. So if you can try to shut down Juju, depending on where he's lining up, I don't know if Deontay Johnson's playing, but if he's the outside guy, you're likely going to be able to shut down one of those two. And if you can get to the quarterback, I don't know that the Eagles win this game, but I think that it could be a little more competitive than we are kind of led to believe or seeing just based on the way that defensive line is playing and the coverage has been. So I'm going to go Minshew.
Yeah, depends on the Eagles' offense and how they perform, right?
Yeah, that's big.
Deontay Johnson is, I assume, playing. He came out of concussion protocol and he's practicing, so.
Gotcha. Well, that's going to be big.
Yeah, safe to assume he's playing. But we'll move along. Our last start sit before we get into the trades. PPR, Joe Mixon at Baltimore or McKinnon versus Dolphins.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to in a vacuum, I'm playing McKinnon. And I think they have a similar upside, but McKinnon has a higher floor. But it all comes down to, is Mostert going to play? Because that, I still think McKinnon has the floor, but it really caps the upside. And then it becomes, hey, do you want a chance at a few touchdowns? So then you're looking at Mixon. Whereas if you just don't want to get a goose egg or 3, then McKinnon makes more sense because he should be the guy, between the 20s, and Mostert maybe is the touchdown guy. So I lean McKinnon here. It's just a really bad matchup, but I know it's going to be tough to not start Mixon after this blow up RB1 on the week game.
Yeah, it's not easy at all, but I come to the same conclusion that you do. I think I'm going with McKinnon here. I might go with him even if Mostert's back. And Mostert started practicing today, so we're on the radar of, you need to pay attention because he might be back. But I think McKinnon's earned himself a role in this offense. He's played really well. As I said before, he looked good in like week 1 too. And you got to think part of this is he's got rust to shake off, and I'm sure a lot of that's off now, but there's the potential for him to get better. So I think I like McKinnon in all situations. The Mixon matchup is just worrisome. That game could go really poorly for him, but he is a talented running back. It takes 2 goal line touchdowns to be, a really good running back, and he's definitely got that potential. But given the matchup, I'm just kind of worried about him this week, so I'll go with McKinnon.
All right, so we're starting McKinnon over the RB1 from last week. A little risky, but we'll see if anyone's going to follow us on that. But with that wrapped up, we're going to move over to a couple of trade questions here. First one, Steve, Dynasty half-point PPR Superflex, Deebo Samuel or a 22 first-round pick and Russell Gage?
This one is pretty interesting. We saw this on Twitter. We got it on Twitter, and the poll was pretty close. There's some opinions out there that Ayuk is the guy to own in San Francisco now, which I disagree with. So I'm taking Deebo. Part of the reason is because it's a 22nd first, so it's a couple years out. That's going to devalue that first. The other part of it is Gage. The upside's not there. Gage and Deebo have a very different upside. So if we were talking a 21 first, you're getting closer. If you swap out Gage and another player, we could talk. But as it stands, I will take Deebo here.
Yeah, I think it's a little closer for me. I probably slightly lean Deebo, but there's a case to be made if your team's built or the right way or a certain way, maybe you don't need as much upside. You want a higher floor. I think Gage is offering you maybe a higher floor with Deebo and Ayuk playing a similar role. Some weeks Deebo's the guy that goes off. Other weeks it's going to be Ayuk. So I think it depends on your team, right? If you're looking to just acquire some picks and maybe get a player like we've mentioned with Gage that's good but not great. I know I can see it, but in a vacuum, I think I still lean with the Debo side.
Okay, our next one was sent to us just to really verify that this person wasn't crazy. They saw this trade go down in their league and was just very quizzical about it. So you got a 10-team, half-point PPR. It is a tight end premium, so you're getting a full PPR for tight ends. No Superflex, just a single QB. Michael Thomas, Austin Eckler, Zach Ertz, and Josh Kelly for Diggs, Connor, Hawkinson in a second. So just to give a comparison of player to player, it's Michael Thomas versus Diggs, Eckler versus Connor, Ertz versus Hawkinson, and Kelly versus second. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's interesting unpacking it. I think Kelly in the second, kind of a wash. Maybe you can come in a little more than that for Kelly, but overall, I'm okay with that. And I think I actually would, cross off Ertz and Connor together. I think their window is a little smaller on both sides. So for me, it's focusing on Michael Thomas and Eckler for Diggs and Hawkinson. And I would lean the Thomas and Eckler side. I think I like Connor a little better than the Ertz side, Kelly a little better than the 21 second. So overall, I'm leaning the Michael Thomas side. Diggs looked great, and Hawkinson is a great upside tight end. But if you have tight ends to move, I wouldn't mind grabbing Ertz for in a couple of years here, and you can kind of build around that. But getting Michael Thomas is huge, and then Austin Eckler. Obviously, the injury is tough now, so you're going to need Kelly, obviously, to fill that role between now and then. But I think it's for me, I lean Michael Thomas side.
Yeah, it's really the Michael Thomas piece to have the issue with. Like you, Kelly in the second, I'm fine calling it a wash. I could see like in the Kelly side, I could see like in the second side. I have no problem with either of that. Exchanging Ertz from Hawkinson, I don't hate. You could definitely, I would assume, get more for Ertz, but Ertz, have Goddard to contend with. He hasn't been the best this year. Hawkinson, young, high draft profile, or high great draft profile, really. So that's fine. Eckler and Connor, given the injury, that makes sense. I mean, I'm worried about Connor long term because he's an injury away from just losing his job and just being done, seemingly. Mm-hmm. And then Michael Thomas versus Diggs is Michael Thomas by a fair bit for me. So I can understand what's happening here. It's just the valuation doesn't make sense. I feel like you need like another first added to the other side, maybe even then some more from me personally. But yeah, I'll take the Thomas side too.
All right, so we'll move over to the realm of redraft here for a few. We've got PPR, Juju, and Josh Kelly for Lockett, Big Ben, and Dobbins.
Yeah, I'll take the Lockett side here. I really like Lockett this year. He didn't have the best week this week, but he's got real high upside at the wide receiver position. I think higher upside than Juju has, personally. Big Ben's a solid get, especially if you need a QB. I guess that's a big part of this question. If you need a QB, then the Big Ben side is a great get. Just to add somebody there. If you don't need a QB, I don't mind the Juju side if you're really high on Juju and don't like Lockett. But I like Lockett more than I like Juju. Big Ben's a good get. Dobbins is a fine depth play. But and he's got intense upside if something were to happen to Ingram. But it's mostly Lockett. I want Lockett. I don't mind the Juju side. I think it's a fine trade overall, but I really want Lockett on my team. How do you feel?
Yeah, Lockett's the best piece here, and he's the one that I'd want the most. Juju's probably not too far behind him. Dobbins, unless you have room and you can hang on to him, Dobbins is probably someone in redraft that you can cut at this point. Until we see, one or two of those running backs be featured more than the others. I don't know that he needs to be on a roster. So I think it's more if you're, a team that's 3-1, 4-0, and you can afford to trade a running back that's going to get some usage like Josh Kelly, then I'll take the Lockett side. But if you're a guy that needs to win now and Dobbins isn't helping you, Big Ben, I'm sure you could say, hey, I can stream somewhere else. Juju's not much of a downgrade from Lockett to me. I'd rather have Lockett, but not too much of a downgrade to get what's going to amount to be a starting running back in Josh Kelly. So I think if you're, on the brink here, 0-4, 1-3, and you really need to get some wins, Josh Kelly, Juju side is okay, but in a vacuum, or if you're, really 4-0, 3-1 team, I'll take the Lockett side.
Okay, next one's a half-point PPR. Straight up, Myles Gaskin or Deebo Samuel?
Yeah, half-point PPR. I mean, Deebo's come along a little slowly, but I know I have him in one spot, and I don't think I would trade him for Myles Gaskin. So I'm going to lean the Deebo side. But this could also, once again, be a similar setup to the last one, where if you need to win now and you're 1-3 and you have Deebo and you're not, you need a running back bad, Gaskin's, producing right now. Whereas maybe Deebo takes a game or two to really get going. And if you're at that point 1-5 and you're out of the race, what does it matter? So if you really need a running back and you want someone who's going to produce now, I could see why you're going Gaskin. But, if in a vacuum, I'm going to go Deebo.
Yeah, I think they fall out the same way. Gaskin's a good get. It's easier to get the wide receiver depth, and he's been a fine piece. So if you need a running back, he's a great asset that you could just kind of plug in there. Again, as we said, this episode and past weeks, the upside seemingly just isn't there. We'll see if it eventually comes, but as of right now, it's not really there. But he's a solid guy. So, if you need to move Deebo to plug that hole, I'm fine with that. If you took a waiver wire shot on Gaskin, you're fine at the running back position. You need a wide receiver. Deebo's a good get. In a vacuum, I'll take Deebo because I think he's got high upside, especially when, he gets around. He is fully healthy. I'm sure he was limited a little bit in the last game, and then Jimmy G comes back and that offense is clicking again. And I think Deebo could be a great piece to have. So I will take Deebo in that vacuum.
All right. And our last one here, 10-team half-point PPR, James Robinson or Allen Robinson?
Man, I cannot believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to go with James Robinson. I mean, I've been entrenched in this position for a couple weeks, and every week, I feel like I just get proven, more and more right. I'm in on James Robinson. He looks like a great running back to have, and I trust what's happening with his usage and his team. And I say that in not in the long term, but I don't think his role is going away. I'm not worried about Armstead coming back or, something happening outside of an injury that's going to disrupt him. So I could see this playing out for the rest of the year. Allen Robinson, obviously, a great wide receiver, but you have a situation on that team where you could be bouncing between quarterbacks. You really don't know what's going to happen. And he has games where he just disappears already. So if you want to go Allen Robinson, I get it. I have no issue with that, but for me, I'm going with the running back here.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you need, right? I don't mind either of them. You're, at this point, probably trading, a borderline wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 for a borderline RB1, RB2 this season. James Robinson has been good. He's got, 4 or more catches each of the last 3 weeks. So he's getting, 3, 6, and 4. So 13 catches in the last 3 weeks. So it's a nice little baseline. But he's getting the yards, man. He's over 100 yards 3 weeks in a row here. He scored 3 touchdowns the last 3 weeks. So he's got 2 matchups coming up against Houston and Detroit that are pretty juicy too. So I think you got to stay in the flames with him. And just when in doubt, running backs are harder to come by than wide receivers. So I'll go Robinson, James Robinson, that is. Yeah, if you need to, if you have running back depth like you do in our work league, and you want to trade for, a higher wide receiver like Allen Robinson, I don't hate that either. I mean, he's put up back-to-back 100-yard games, with a touchdown each, over 10 targets each game. So maybe Foles has kind of figured out how to finally unlock Allen Robinson this season, and it was a Trubisky thing. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, both good options. I'll take James Robinson in a vacuum, though.
Okay, that's going to take care of today's episode. Will, do you have any parting words?
Good luck, everybody. Hopefully all of your players remain healthy as always here, and you all come away with big wins this week and move one step closer here to the playoffs.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Give us a follow on Twitter @TrustYourBoard. We'd really appreciate it. Until next week. Bust your board.